Vincent Carmichael adjusted his platinum cufflinks for the third time, watching his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office. The sunset painted downtown in shades of amber and gold, but his attention remained fixed on his own image. At 45, he had everything: a real estate empire worth $80 million, a collection of luxury cars, and a social standing that opened every door in the city. Everything except a wife who fit the picture he wanted to project. "You look perfect," Sienna Blake purred, gliding across the marble floor in a crimson dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her model-perfect features and 28-year-old skin practically glowed under the recessed lighting. "Everyone at the gala will be watching us." That was exactly what Vincent wanted. For 2 years, he had been keeping Sienna hidden, enjoying her company in private while maintaining his marriage to Rachel. But tonight's charity gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel was different. This was the social event of the season, hosted by his business partner, Jonathan Pierce. The guest list included senators, tech billionaires, celebrity philanthropists, and everyone who mattered in their world. Vincent had made his decision 3 weeks ago. He would attend with Sienna. The lie had come easily. He had told Rachel over breakfast, barely looking up from his phone, that the gala was strictly a business function. "No spouses this year," he had said with practiced casualness. "Jonathan wants to keep it focused on potential investors and deals. You understand?" Rachel had nodded, her warm brown eyes showing nothing but acceptance. "Of course. I have that medical consultation tomorrow anyway. You go make those connections." The memory made Vincent feel nothing. After 20 years of marriage, Rachel had become invisible to him. She still worked part-time at the community health clinic, still wore modest clothes, still pulled her graying hair back in that same simple style. She had been a nurse when they met, back when Vincent was just starting out, building his first property development. She had supported him, believed in him, even taken extra shifts to help with startup costs. But that was ancient history. Vincent had evolved, climbed higher, entered circles where image was currency. Rachel had not evolved with him. "Darling, we should leave," Sienna said, checking her diamond-encrusted watch. "Fashionably late is one thing, but we want to make an entrance." Vincent grabbed his jacket, Italian wool cut by a tailor in Milan. As they rode the private elevator down to the garage where his Bentley waited, he felt a surge of satisfaction. Tonight would establish him in a new tier of society. With Sienna on his arm, he would finally be seen as the success story he knew himself to be. The Grand Meridian Hotel blazed with lights when they arrived. Valets rushed forward, photographers clustered near the entrance, and the red carpet literally rolled out before them. Vincent placed his hand on Sienna's lower back, guiding her forward with practiced possessiveness. "Vincent Carmichael," Jonathan Pierce greeted them in the marble lobby, his handshake firm and his smile wide. If he was surprised by Sienna's presence, instead of Rachel's, he hid it perfectly. "Glad you could make it. And who is this lovely lady?" "Sienna Blake," Vincent said smoothly. "She's been helping me with some property staging projects. Brilliant eye for design." The lie tasted like champagne on his tongue, smooth and sparkling. Catherine Pierce, Jonathan's wife, appeared beside her husband. Her eyes flickered over Sienna, with the quick assessment of someone who had organized 1,000 events and knew exactly who belonged on her guest list. "How nice," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Welcome to our humble gathering." The ballroom took Vincent's breath away. Crystal chandeliers hung from hand-painted ceilings. Tables draped in white silk surrounded a dance floor that gleamed like glass, and a string quartet played in the corner. The crowd represented at least $5 billion in collective net worth. "This is incredible," Sienna whispered, gripping his arm tighter. Vincent led her through the crowd, making introductions, dropping names, ensuring everyone saw them together. He watched heads turn, saw the men's appreciative glances at Sienna, felt the weight of being envied. This was what success looked like. At the bar, he ordered 2 glasses of Dom Perignon and handed one to Sienna. She clinked her glass against his, her lips curving into a smile that promised everything. "To new beginnings," she said. "To being seen," Vincent replied. They had been circulating for an hour when Vincent spotted Thomas Gray across the room. His childhood friend stood near the auction tables, looking uncomfortable in his formal wear, despite having made millions from his best-selling novels. Thomas had always been the conscience Vincent found inconvenient, the voice that asked difficult questions. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Thomas's expression shifted from surprise to something harder to read. He started walking toward them, and Vincent felt the first small tremor of unease ripple through his perfect evening. "Vincent," Thomas said when he reached them, his voice carefully neutral. "I did not expect to see you here with anyone other than Rachel." The words hung in the air between them like an accusation disguised as observation, and Vincent felt the carefully constructed facade of his perfect night begin to show its first hairline crack. Vincent recovered quickly, painting on his most charming smile. "Thomas, good to see you. Rachel had a prior commitment tonight. Medical consultation work. You know how dedicated she is to her patients." Thomas Gray studied him with those thoughtful eyes that had always seen too much. At 43, Thomas had known Vincent since they were 10 years old, back when they built tree forts in the woods behind the elementary school. Those same eyes now held disappointment that made Vincent's jaw tighten. "Really?" Thomas said flatly. He turned to Sienna with professional courtesy. "Thomas Gray, I write novels that no one admits to reading at parties like this." Sienna laughed, the sound practiced and bright. "Oh, I loved Shadows of Conscience. The part where the protagonist realizes he has become everything he once despised was devastating." The irony was not lost on anyone. Thomas's expression remained politely neutral, but Vincent felt heat creeping up his neck. "We should circulate," he said, already steering Sienna away. "Lots of people to meet." "That was your oldest friend," Sienna observed as they moved toward the auction tables. "He seems to disapprove of me." "Thomas disapproves of everything," Vincent said dismissively. "He is stuck in some fantasy world where everyone lives by outdated moral codes. Success requires flexibility, adaptation. He would not understand." But the encounter had planted a seed of discomfort that grew as the evening progressed. Vincent noticed Thomas talking quietly with Jonathan Pierce, both men glancing in his direction. He saw Catherine Pierce whispering to a cluster of women, their eyes darting toward Sienna with expressions that mixed curiosity and judgment. The auction began at 8. Vintage wines, tropical getaways, and exclusive experiences paraded across the stage, while bidders raised their paddles with casual wealth. Vincent won a golf package at Pebble Beach for $30,000, enjoying the small ripple of applause and the impressed look on Sienna's face. "Ladies and gentlemen," Catherine Pierce announced from the podium, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "Before we continue, I want to acknowledge some confusion regarding tonight's guest list. Several of you have asked where Rachel Carmichael is this evening." Vincent's blood went cold. Beside him, Sienna tensed. Catherine smiled warmly at the crowd. "I want to assure everyone that Rachel was absolutely invited. In fact, she personally RSVP'd weeks ago and has been instrumental in coordinating some of tonight's charitable components behind the scenes." The ballroom seemed to tilt. Vincent gripped his champagne glass so hard he feared it might shatter. Margaret Winters, the event coordinator, appeared at Catherine's side. She was a petite woman in her 50s who had organized charity events for 2 decades. Her face showed genuine confusion as she consulted her tablet. Yes, Rachel confirmed her attendance. Just yesterday. She mentioned she was bringing a special announcement about the medical wing donation. Thomas materialized beside Vincent like a ghost from his conscience. Medical wing donation, he repeated quietly. Interesting. What do you know about that? Vincent? Nothing, Vincent said through clenched teeth. There must be some mistake. Must there? Thomas's voice carried an edge now. Because I had coffee with Rachel 2 weeks ago. She seemed excited about tonight. She never mentioned that spouses were excluded. Sienna touched Vincent's arm uncertainly. Vincent, what is going on? Before he could answer, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. A distinguished man in his 60s had arrived, surrounded by a small entourage. Vincent recognized him immediately. Dr. Henry Foster, one of the most respected cardiologists in the country, whose endorsement could make or break medical facilities. Dr. Foster's eyes swept the ballroom and landed on Catherine Pierce. He made his way to the podium with purpose. Catherine, my apologies for the delay. The emergency surgery took longer than expected. He accepted a microphone with practiced ease. I want to thank everyone for supporting tonight's cause, particularly the new cardiac research wing. This initiative would not exist without one person's extraordinary vision and generosity. Vincent felt sweat beading on his forehead, despite the ballroom's perfect climate control. 23 years ago, Dr. Foster continued, his voice warm, with emotion. I was a resident working impossible hours at County General. I collapsed in the hallway from exhaustion and stress. A nurse found me, got me to the ER, and quite literally saved my life. She also told me something I have never forgotten. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others. That nurse was Rachel Carmichael. The ballroom fell silent, except for the quiet clink of glasses. Rachel checked on me for months after that incident. She made sure I ate properly, rested adequately, and maintained the balance that would allow me to have a long career instead of a short, burned-out one. I owe my entire career to her intervention. Dr. Foster paused, letting the word settle. So when Rachel approached me last year about establishing a cardiac research wing that would focus on preventing physician burnout and patient care quality, I did not hesitate. Her personal donation of $5 million made this project possible. Vincent felt the floor dissolve beneath him. $5 million. Rachel had $5 million to donate. Furthermore, Dr. Foster continued, Rachel's consulting work with medical facilities across 3 states has generated innovative patient care protocols now being adopted nationally. Her work has saved countless lives, though she refuses to take credit publicly. Tonight, however, I insist we honor her contributions. Applause erupted across the ballroom. Vincent stood frozen, his mind spinning. $5 million. Consulting work across 3 states. National recognition. How had he not known any of this? Because you stopped paying attention, a voice whispered in his mind. Because you stopped asking about her days, her work, her life. Margaret. Winters appeared at his elbow, her tablet showing a detailed spreadsheet. Mr. Carmichael, I have records here showing that Rachel has been the primary donor for 6 of our major projects over the past 4 years. The foundation matched her contributions, but she was the catalyst. Did you want to add your name to tonight's donation? Or does the contribution remain solely in her name as specified? Vincent could not form words. Beside him, Sienna had gone very quiet, her eyes scanning the room as if calculating new equations. Thomas leaned close, his voice gentle but firm. She never stopped being remarkable, Vincent. You just stopped noticing. The whispers started like wildfire through dry grass, spreading from table to table. Vincent stood paralyzed as hundreds of eyes turned toward him, then toward Sienna, then back again. The mathematics of the situation were being calculated in real time across the ballroom. Wealthy man, young mistress, absent wife who apparently funded half the charity. Vincent, Sienna hissed, her composure cracking. You told me Your wife was some nobody nurse who did nothing with her life. I thought—" Vincent started, but his voice failed him. Jonathan Pierce materialized through the crowd, his earlier friendliness replaced with something harder. "We need to talk. Privately." It was not a request. But before Vincent could move, the ballroom doors opened again. A woman entered with quiet confidence, wearing an elegant navy gown that complemented her silver-streaked hair. Rachel Carmichael had arrived. She moved through the crowd with grace, stopping to embrace Dr. Foster, exchanging warm greetings with guests who clearly knew and respected her. Vincent watched his wife transform before his eyes into someone he barely recognized, or perhaps someone he had simply refused to see. Behind Rachel came an older woman with striking presence, her posture radiating authority. Vincent recognized Judge Patricia Morrison from newspaper articles about landmark medical malpractice cases. She was a legend in legal circles, known for her fierce protection of patient rights and healthcare workers. "Rachel," Judge Morrison said warmly, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "I keep telling you that saving my daughter's life 15 years ago was worth more than any legal favor I could ever return." Rachel smiled gently. "Patricia, you know I never ask for favors. I just ask for fairness." The judge's eyes swept the room and landed on Vincent with laser precision. "Well, tonight you shall have both." Catherine Pierce returned to the podium, her expression unreadable. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat. Our keynote speaker this evening is Rachel Carmichael, medical consultant, patient advocate, and the generous soul behind tonight's cardiac research wing. Rachel has asked to share some important announcements." Rachel walked to the podium as applause filled the ballroom. Vincent felt his legs wobbling. Sienna's grip on his arm had shifted from affectionate to desperate. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Rachel began, her voice steady and warm. "I want to talk about something important, the difference between building empires and building legacies." Her eyes found Vincent in the crowd. There was no anger in her gaze, only a deep sadness that cut worse than any accusation. 20 years ago, I married a man with big dreams. I believed in those dreams. I worked double shifts at the hospital so he could make his first property investment. I connected him with my father's business associates before my father passed. I co-signed loans, managed books, and helped build what became Carmichael Properties. She paused. What I did not realize was that somewhere along the way, the man I married confused wealth with worth. Vincent felt every eye in the ballroom burning into him. 6 months ago, I discovered that my husband had been systematically inflating property values in his developments to secure larger loans. He had been bribing building inspectors to overlook code violations. He had been creating shell companies to hide debt. Rachel's voice remained calm, factual. I also discovered he had been maintaining a relationship with another woman for 2 years. Sienna released Vincent's arm like it had burned her. "As a healthcare professional, I believe in diagnosis before treatment," Rachel continued. "So I spent 6 months gathering evidence, consulting with attorneys, and working with financial investigators. Tonight seems an appropriate time to share my findings." Judge Morrison stepped forward, joined by a man in a dark suit who Vincent now recognized as Officer Ben Santos from the Financial Crimes Division. The officer's presence sent ice through Vincent's veins. "Mr. Carmichael," Officer Santos said, formally, moving through the crowd. "I need you to come with me. There are some questions about property fraud, loan manipulation, and several other financial irregularities that require immediate attention." The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Vincent looked around wildly for support, but found none. Jonathan Pierce stood with his arms crossed, his face granite. Thomas Gray watched with sad resignation, as if mourning the friend Vincent used. "To be. This is insane!" Vincent sputtered. "Rachel, you cannot do this! I built that company, I made us wealthy!" "You made yourself wealthy through fraud," Rachel corrected gently. And you did it using my inheritance from my father as collateral, the $7 million he left me, which you told me you had invested wisely. Instead, you used it to cover your mounting debts while you wined and dined your mistress. $7 million. The number hit Vincent like a physical blow. Rachel's father had been a successful medical equipment manufacturer. Vincent had convinced Rachel to let him manage the inheritance, promising to grow it for their future. Instead, he had treated it like his personal bank account. Sienna backed away from Vincent as if he carried a contagious disease. Her eyes were already scanning the room, landing on a tech billionaire near the bar. Within seconds, she had glided away, her crimson dress disappearing into the crowd like blood diluting in water. "Everything you told me was a lie," she called back without looking. "Good luck with your legal problems." Officer Santos reached Vincent's side. "Sir, we can do this quietly or we can make a scene. Your choice." Vincent's perfect evening had become his complete destruction in less than an hour. He looked at Rachel one more time, searching for the woman who had once loved him unconditionally. She looked back with something that might have been pity. "I gave you 20 years, Vincent. I gave you my support, my father's money, my belief in your potential. All I asked in return was basic respect and honesty." Rachel's voice carried across the silent ballroom. "You could not even give me that." As Officer Santos led Vincent toward the exit, Thomas Gray stepped into his path briefly. "You had everything, old friend. You just never learned to see it." The last thing Vincent saw before the ballroom doors closed was Rachel accepting congratulations from Dr. Foster and Judge Morrison, surrounded by people who genuinely admired her. She stood taller somehow, unburdened by the weight of a marriage that had drained her for years. Outside, police lights painted the hotel entrance in rotating blue and red. Vincent sat in the back of an unmarked car, his platinum cufflinks catching the light one final time. Inside the Grand Meridian, the charity gala continued without him. The auction resumed, champagne flowed, and Rachel Carmichael finally received the recognition she had earned through 2 decades of quiet generosity and genuine compassion. Karma had not spoken loudly. It had simply revealed the truth. And the truth had been devastating enough. The end.